Alright, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be discussing significant figures in calculations. But before I get to that, I just want to divert your attention to the bottom of the screen where it says rules for rounding off. And for the purpose of illustrating the rules for rounding off, we're going to be assuming that we're going to round to 2 digits. Okay? So now that we have that down, we'll move to rule number 1. So the first rule says that if the digit being removed is greater than 5, then the number before it is rounded up or increased by 1. So for this example, we'll take 2.37. We're trying to round this to 2 digits. We're trying to remove the number 7. 7 is greater than 5, therefore we will be rounding up, so 2.37 will be rounded to 2.4. Okay? So now moving to rule number 2, if the digit being removed is less than 5, so instead of 7, let's just say we have 2.34, we won't be rounding up, we're actually going to keep the number the same. So 2.34 will just be rounded to 2.3. Alright, so those two were simple enough. The last rule is probably the trickiest out of all of the three, and this is when we're trying to remove the number 5. So there's two possible outcomes, and this depends on if the number before the 5 is even or if the number before the 5 is odd. So we'll address the example where the number before the 5 is odd, which is in 2.35. So in this case, what happens is that when we're trying to remove the number 5, we actually round up because the number before the 5 is odd. So 2.35 will be rounded up to 2.4. In the case where the number before the 5 is actually even, so for example if you have 2.25, the number will actually stay the same. Alright, and an easy way to remember this is that when you try to get even with someone, you're trying to be on par or the same with that person. So when you're rounding the number 5 off and the number before it is even, it'll just stay the same. So now that we know all the rules for rounding off, we can actually address significant figures. So if you look to the top of the screen, you'll see the rules for significant figures. And when dealing with significant figures in calculations, you have to, it depends on the operation. So there's two categories of operation. There's multiplication and division, and then there's addition and subtraction. We'll talk about multiplication and division first. So when you're multiplying or dividing, you want to match your product to have the same number of digits as in the number with the fewest digits in the beginning. So to illustrate this example, we'll just look at this. So if you have 2.33 times 1.2, your final answer will be 2.796. Okay? Now we still have to round this, right? And we're trying to match the number that has the fewest digits in total. So that would be 1.2, and our final answer needs to match this to have two significant figures, and this will round to 2.8. And the reason for this is because 9 is greater than 5, therefore 7 will be rounded up by 1, which will give you a final answer of 2.8. And the same rules apply for division. So in the beginning, when you're dividing, look at the number that has the fewest digits, and your final answer should contain the same number of digits. Now we'll move on to addition and subtraction. When you're adding or subtracting, you need to match your final answer to have the same number of decimal places as there is in the beginning with the number that has the fewest decimal places. So an example of this would be if you had 5.66 minus 3.1, okay? Your final answer will be 2.56. But then this still needs to be rounded, right? So in order to round this, we have to have the same number of decimal places as in the beginning, which has the fewest decimal places. So in 3.1, there's only one decimal place, so our final answer needs to match that. And remember to take into account the rules for rounding off. And once you do that, you'll realize 2.56 will round to 2.6 because 6 is greater than 5. And 5 will be rounded up, resulting in an answer of 2.6. So that is significant figures in a nutshell. Hopefully this helps you guys. Thanks for watching.